right, good morning, everybody. Today is Thursday, November 12th, 2015, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Thursday, everybody. One more day. We just got to make it one more day. It is 59 degrees and raining here in upstate New York. I just was looking through my news feed, and I happened to see that major low pressure system that is coming across the country. It apparently gave all kinds of snow to Colorado and whatever. They are now calling a cyclone, and it is on its way here. It's almost to New York. They're predicting 50-mile-an-hour winds here and very low pressure, and it might explain why I woke up feeling like I got run over by a truck this morning. I'm feeling all right after a cup of coffee now, and sitting here getting irradiated by my 3 monitors while going through the stories this morning. So where did we leave off yesterday? We titled the show Mail Order DNA, Biohacking, and DIY Cowless Cheese. And if you remember, we were making cheese without the cow and burgers without the beef. I don't know. We talked about all kinds of crazy things. Making opiates without the poppies. And I did find a story about that also, where they were using the genetically modified yeast. I mentioned that to make homebrew opiates. I don't know, these biohackers, down the side of my show from yesterday on YouTube, I see that there are all kinds of suggested videos, and there's a whole bunch about biohacking, so I think I might need to dig more into what these crazy kids are doing these days. But I mentioned a story yesterday about one of the newest things that biohackers are doing are cutting themselves on their hands and inserting LEDs under their skins. I don't know, man. There's just something not quite right about some of this new mentality to become part of the machine. So one of the stories, so we've kind of seen this progression as to what's happening. We have the UN, of course, coming out saying red meat is not safe, causes cancer. We have processed foods cause cancer, and cows aren't good for the environment. And oh my goodness, bug protein is so wonderful. And we have all these new sciences for the globe that are going to help us make more food for more people with less resources. And climate change, of course, is on the forefront of everybody's minds these days. Though don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain, because, hey, NASA even came out and said that the South Pole has more ice, not less. But, hey, we went through all the records of climate change, and we decided that even though that it showed the temperature dropped for a while there, we decided that we were going to rewrite all the records and know that was just an anomaly and it didn't exist anymore. So, hey, we are in full frontal climate change now, and we better work on what we can do as good global citizens to fix it. And that even includes keeping yourself healthy, making sure that you go see your doctor and get your little wristband, because these 21st century cures are going to be what saves the planet. All right, so I found a story. So we talked about the cheese that was not cow's cheese by genetically engineering cheese through utilizing bacteria to then do the fermentation that produces the, I don't know, whatever it was. They were splicing and dicing mail order lactose genes or something, and then inserting them into a sucked up bacteria and getting the bacteria to produce the vegan non-cow cheese. Well, here we go. The UN is not satisfied with emission pledges. This came out back on October 30th, so this was already 2 weeks ago, but I had this queued up for a while. I've been struggling. By the way, I want to mention to everybody, so I've been having this mega struggle for months, and if you're a regular listener, you will know, but just with this freezing up and locking up and spinning tabs and machines on syrup, 100% utilization for CPU. So I spent some time over the last 4 or 5 days on my notebook isolating the problem, because it's gotten to where the notebook is now unusable. And I was able to discover that even though in Task Manager every time my machine went to 100% utilization and it was frozen, and by the way, it started one time an hour, every hour on the hour, but then it went up to 4 times an hour, which was just completely impossible for like 5 minutes at a crack. There is a tool inside of Task Manager. I don't remember what it was called, but it was a little button that allowed me to dig in even deeper to the processes. And even though Task Manager said that there was nothing that was using more than 2% CPU utilization, I discovered in this additional view of Task Manager, it was the free AVG antivirus that was doing it. I went in online, did some searches to see if other people had had issues, and I found all kinds of complaints from people that have said over the last year or so something has changed at AVG in regards to their service, their product, and mega issues. People getting charged for things they didn't use, people getting spyware on the machine from AVG and then calling AVG and being charged like $29.95 to remove it. I don't know. Doesn't sound good to me, but I always wondered, like, AVG was too good to be true. I've been having similar issues on these 2 desktops out here in the office, and guess what? I'm running AVG on them as well. So anyway, yesterday I did a full-blown uninstall of AVG, and then I started reading that it leaves little snippets all over your machine that you can never get rid of. So a friend of mine gave me one of the original Microsoft Deep Cleaning Essentials antiviruses, and it's been running for 13 hours now. And yes, I know they're probably scanning everything on my machine, but that machine really doesn't have anything personal on it anyway. It's just stuff for doing, cutting for YouTube and shows and whatever. But 13 hours deep clean, and it's like a hair from being done. And then another piece of software, and I don't remember what it's called, but it's one that goes and finds all the stubs of uninstalled software and gets rid of them as well. So after I uninstalled the AVG, guess what? I had no more 100% CPU utilization on that machine. So thank goodness, because I thought I was going to have to slick it and start over or had some kind of nasty virus. But I'm just warning you, if you start having issues with your machine and it's going to 100% and it is freezing up and you can find nothing and you run spyware and or anti-spyware software and all the different downloads that you can do and it doesn't find anything, take a look at your antivirus, because that really surprised me. So who the hell knows what they're doing in the background every 15 minutes at my computer for 5 minutes at a crack that gives me only 10-minute windows to work. But it was extremely frustrating, and it pretty much took me to a non-working state when I wasn't sitting out here physically in the office. So good news is I think I found the problem, and it is being remedied as we speak. It's just about finished up there. So anyway, back to this. The UN isn't satisfied with the emission pledges of countries around the world. Governments' emission cutting pledges ahead of a global conference in December are a good step toward achieving an international global warming goal, but they are not enough, said the UN climate chief on Friday in October, whatever it was, October 30th was when the story was written. The plans were submitted by what? Yes, 146 countries, people. Ding, 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 ding. I don't know, when I go into my Google Analytics for the UCY website to see how many wonderful countries come and visit our website, I mean, that's about almost the whole number. And we're talking even like little unnamed islands. 146 countries is pretty high up there to all be getting on board with this UN global emissions plan. The plan submitted by 146 countries for the climate conference in Paris could cut average global emissions per capita of greenhouse gases by up to 8% by 2025 and 9% by 2030 compared with 1990 levels, says a UN assessment. UN climate chief Christiana Figueres which I didn't know we had a UN climate chief, but I guess that's who it is. Christiana Figueres. Her office didn't directly assess the pledge's impact on the goal of keeping the rise in global temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius or 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you not in the metric system. I think Celsius is considered metric, isn't it? Celsius, millimeters, kilometers. By the end of the century, compared with pre-industrial times. Figures, however, pointed to an International Energy Agency assessment that would result in a 2.7 degree increase compared with a 4 to 5 degree increase if we have no action. It is a very good step, she said in her French accent, and it is actually a remarkable step, but it is not enough, she told reporters, making it clear that she does not consider the pledges the last word. So, hey, you know what the last word is going to be? You have too many cows on that farm. I'm telling you guys, me and my food phobias. And we're going to talk food as in P-H-O-O-D. I think that's how Levon spells it. Food phobias. I'm not eating 3D printed nutraceutical bug protein. Thank you very much, Christiana Figueres. It says, many countries have been healthily conservative in what they have put on the table. Do you like the way that's worded there too? Healthily and on the table. And that's very understandable because they do not want to expose themselves prematurely internationally. Figueres says, we may get more from some corners and less than others. Scientists say a temperature rise of more than 2 degrees Celsius, and this is going to give us 2.7 degrees if we stick with our proposals, could result in profound and irreversible impact on the climate, including flooding of coastal cities and island nations and disruptions to, agriculture and drinking water, two things that cows depend upon, as well as crops and everything else. Lee Shuo, a Greenpeace climate expert, said that the UN assessment highlights, quote, a clear shortfall, unquote, in efforts to limit global warming, but added that, quote, it is very likely that China, for example, can and will move faster than it's offered, as it's already rapidly getting out of coal and into renewables, unquote. And yes, and China is also rapidly getting into robotics. And that's something that I've had a few stories I wanted to touch on, just these Chinese factories now that are going 100% industrialized with robots and only a few supervisors to run them all, as opposed to an entire factory full of people. And that is already happening. The UN examined pledges submitted by October 1st, which came from all of the industrialized countries, as well as 3/4 of the developing countries, accounting together for 86% of greenhouse gas emission. A further 10 plans have been submitted since then. And the Parents' Conference is a crucial test for the diplomatic process, which failed to deliver a strong deal 6 years ago in Copenhagen. Figueres says she is confident there will not be a repeat of that. So I don't know if Ron Stevens or Hal Anthony are out there. Keep your ears open. I guess this new UN climate conference is in December. I was not aware of that. In Paris. So this should be interesting to hear what they have to say on the heels of this 12-nation ratification for TPP and the soon to come tippy-pippy TTIP for the European nations. Says there will be an agreement because from where I stand, says this Figueres, I see only increasing political will on the part of all governments, she said. The Paris deal needs to add to the national pledges, quote, a path of continuous improvement, unquote, that would lead to the 2-degree target, she added. Figueroa said she is optimistic about governments delivering their pledges because, quote, they all stem out of the national interests of these countries and hence stand a much better chance of being implemented than anything that is external or what? Yes, punitive. Punitive damages for damaging the environment if you don't give it up to the new UN standards. I mean, put on a seatbelt. I know I've said that before, but seriously, put on a seatbelt because this is about ready for 2016 to notch into high gear for climate change. So getting back to this vegan, we were talking about genetically modified foods and some of the insanity, the biohacking and the cow cheese without cow, vegan cheese. Well, I mentioned at the very end of the show, and we only did like one paragraph, so I'd like to do this story. A former McDonald's CEO is now joining a vegan meat startup. Yes, he's going to bring all of his experience at fast food to now vegan meat because remember, they're hiring psychiatrists and psychologists all over to try to spin this new 21st century food, medicine, and climate change to those of us who are considered resistant consumers, right? I was explaining that to my daughter at dinner yesterday, how we will be considered resistant consumers one day. Beyond Meat is loving it, is the subtext. Don Thompson, who left his CEO post at McDonald's early in 2015 after a 2.5-year stint, has joined the board of directors at a vegan meat substitute startup called Beyond Meat. Don's expertise and leadership is invaluable as we seek to deliver on our promise of enabling consumers to eat what they love without any downsides, says Beyond Meat founder and CEO Ethan Brown in a statement. Beyond Meat also announced Seth Goldman, co-founder and CEO of Honest Tea, would become executive chairman, and Goldman has served as a board member of Beyond Meat since 2013. Beyond Meat touted Thompson's responsibility for establishing, integrating, and orchestrating McDonald's innovative pipeline, quote unquote. What are we going to consider innovative pipelines? Like the McChicken? Deep fried McChicken to be healthy. Deep fried Chinese chicken to be healthy. But his tenure at the top of the fast food giant was judged poorly by McDonald's and his shareholders. The 25-year company veteran officially retired earlier this year, but it was clear that after sliding sales and mounting pressure on the brand, he likely didn't make that choice alone. Still, it is a coup for a small food startup like Beyond Meat. You know, I wonder what Beyond Meat's factory looks like. Is it somebody's garage or former heavy metal club like the vegan cheese place, or is this like an official vegan meat startup? Oh, and wait till you see who is an investor. Oh God, this is how you know that it's going to be bad. Anyway, this 25-year company veteran, Mr. Thompson, officially quote unquote retired earlier this year. But it was clear that after sliding sales and mounting pressure on the brand, he likely did not make that choice alone. Still, it is a coup for the small food startup like Beyond Meat to court an executive with such a high-profile reputation in the food and beverage world. And Beyond Meat has already gotten some notable attention. Oh, guess who? Good old Microsoft founder Billy Gates is an investor. Ding, 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 ding. So is cereal maker General Mills. So, yeah, they're really betting on this non-beef beef. And I'm trying to click on this article. There's a link to Billy Gates becoming an investor. Let's see what it says. I don't know if it's going to let me. Everything is half cracked out here. Dee, 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 dee. Everything is half cracked out here. Oh, here we go. Bill Gates-backed company that's reinventing meat. I don't need my meat reinvented. Thank you very much. Says Beyond Meat closes in on the perfect fake chicken. So I was just guessing about the chicken, but there we go. The perfect fake chicken. It's turning heads and taste buds. The pizza is real in this picture, but the chicken is not. Most people consume protein in what vegetarians call the second-hand form, and that is after it has been digested and converted into meat by chickens, cows, and pigs. And don't forget, too, we read that story a couple days ago about the new genetically modified pigs as well out of China. Sounds like a good plan to me. Anyway, we eat it secondhand after it's been digested, converted into meat by chickens, cows, and pigs. But this is inefficient, as Winston Churchill noted. What? In 50 years hence, an essay published in 1931. Why are they invoking Churchill in regards to us giving up meat? This is weird. In a story that's titled with Bill Gates' name, Churchill wrote, "We shall escape the absurdity of growing a whole chicken in order to eat the breast or the wing by growing these parts separately under a suitable medium. Synthetic food will, from the outset, be practically indistinguishable from natural products, and any changes will be so gradual as to escape observation." Oh my God. I'll tell you what, that's the first time I have ever heard or read that quote, but that was from Winston Churchill in 1931. Somebody knew something. Let's read that one more time. Quote, "We shall escape the absurdity of growing a whole chicken in order to eat the breast or the wing by growing these parts separately under a suitable medium. Synthetic food will, from the outset, be practically indistinguishable from natural products, and any changes will be so gradual as to escape observation." That's exactly what they've been doing. They have been inserting genetically modified organisms into the food chain for at least 20 to 25 years that I've been able to document so far in my research. And it may have even gone further back than that when you go back to some of the crazy scientific experiments that the Department of Defense and others have been doing on the U.S. population, as well as third world nations, for 50 to 75 years. Then again, back to the story, predictions are hard, especially about the future. Well, not for me, they're not. We're seeing, on this show, we see the writing on the wall. Food scientists and entrepreneurs have tried to reinvent meat for decades with little to show for it. But last summer, Dr. Mark Post, a Dutch scientist and medical doctor, unveiled a 5-ounce hamburger that was grown in a laboratory from cow muscle at the cost of $325,000. We talked about that. This is this test tube beef. They use stem cells from a cow. They get them to grow in a petri dish, and they physically exercise them with electrical zaps like a TENS unit to get them to build bulk. So they will eventually, the hope will be, grow large enough to be a piece of meat that then can be made into something like a hamburger. Now, this story here that we're reading right now is from 2013. We just saw an update to that lab-grown meat. And the $325,000 burger back in 2012 has now gone to something like $11.49 in its cost. And that's been quite exponential. I mean, that's almost the price of a $13 steak like we see now every day in the grocery store. Go look if you haven't looked at the price of steak lately. And you can't even have a Sunday barbecue for the end of summer without going half broke. This is going to be the way of the future. And how interesting is this? So anyway, this Dutch scientist and medical doctor unveiled a 5-ounce hamburger that was grown in a laboratory from cow muscle at a cost of $325,000. And who? Oh, Google founder Sergey Brin. Wow, doesn't he keep coming up everywhere? Picked up the tab. So I guess he paid for it. So Sergey Brin is responsible for the test tube hamburgers. He paid for it. See, we looked at some stories a few weeks ago at all these tech titan billionaires that made all their money in the tech industry and how they're the ones that are financing a lot of this mad science gone mad that's going to be pushed onto the masses with all of these different new federal edicts and executive orders and acts that they're passing. 21st Century Cures Act, of course, is for longevity. The immortality projects that are sprinkled all over the place. And then we have, the precision medicine initiative with big data and cloud computing and electronic medical health records and databases and algorithms and AI. Oh my God, it's so wonderful. Look at what a cash cow this is going to be for the tech industry. This is like Y2K back in 1999 on steroids. Closer to home, mock meat from companies like where? Oh, Kellogg and Kraft. What? Yes, Kellogg and Kraft can already be found in supermarket freezers. Oh, don't make me puke. I'm glad I don't eat any of this stuff. Branded as chicken nuggets, CHIK''N nuggets. Oh, this is mock meat. And all-American flame-grilled meatless burgers, as well as classic meatless meatballs. So yeah, this is some of the vegan stuff that's out there, all based on soy. And I will guarantee you it's probably GMO soy. Soy-based, mushy, and more expensive than the real thing. They remain niche products. And yet, the need for alternatives to meat has never been greater. Global demand for meat has tripled in the last 40 years, driven by population growth and doubling of per capita meat consumption, according to the World Watch Institute. And that has intensified the pressures on the land, the water, the feed, the fertilizer, and the fuel. Meat is also what? Oh, a climate change problem. Yes! Animal agriculture is said to be responsible for about 14.5% of human-induced greenhouse gas emissions, more than any in the transportation sector. And this presents a big opportunity for someone who can devise a tasty and affordable plant-based substitute for meat. And that's exactly what Ethan Brown, the founder and chief executive of a California-based startup called Beyond Meat, aims to do. And he has persuaded some smart people to put their money behind him. So this is talking again about that Beyond Meat, who just now managed to get the former CEO of McDonald's to come work with them on their board of directors. Beyond Meat makes vegan chicken-free strips that it says are better for people's health. Of course they are. That's how they're going to spin it, remember. It's all going to be about how healthy this new food is. Nutraceuticals. For it says it's better for people's health because they're low fat and no cholesterol, even though we found out cholesterol is not harmful, and it may even be harmful to reduce your cholesterol because your brain is over 50% cholesterol. It's also better for the environment, they say, requiring less land and water, and better for animals, obviously, than real chicken. And most important, if it all goes according to plan, they will cost less to produce than chicken itself. Fortune, the magazine that I'm reading from right now, has learned that Bill Gates is an investor. He sampled the product and said that he could not tell the difference between Beyond Meat and real chicken. The meat market is ripe for invention, says Gates in a blog post about the future of food. Oh, God. You know what? There's a link to that blog post. I might have to dig into that later. Kleiner Perkins, the Silicon Valley venture capital firm, made Beyond Meat its first investment in a food startup. They are looking for big ideas, and this qualifies as a big idea. See, people, it's coming. The future of food is not going to be anything like we know it now. The single biggest inefficiency in agriculture is how we get our protein. Ding, ding, bugs, crickets, mealyworms. Other investors include Evan Williams and Biz Stone, the founders of Twitter, Morgan Creek Capital Management, and the Humane Society of the United States, an animal welfare group. Beyond Meat, which is being rolled out nationally this fall, so that was in 2013, aims to be better for you and eventually cheaper than real chicken. Well, yeah, let's price us out of the real stuff. I really think that that is the strategy. Who the hell can afford $13 a pound for a steak? I mean, that's like an American staple. At least once a summer, 4th of July, something. You'd have some steaks on the grill. You can't buy steaks for 4 people, plus the fixins, and that's $100 meal at home. Just to have something that, I mean, a few years ago, hamburger was like $1.99 a pound. Now it's like $5 a pound for the cheap stuff. Or more. Says, if our product is higher quality than meat at a much lower cost, imagine how much we can disrupt the market. I told you, disruptive technologies. That's when they take the chessboard, they wipe it clean, and we start over. All of this technology that's coming right now is considered disruptive technology. Will change things forever. The paradigm that we go by is gone, and we're starting from square zero. Says it is delivered in boxes of rough edge rectangular chicken-free strips that are made from soy protein isolate, pea protein isolate, and amaranth with plant-derived chicken flavoring by Givaudan, the world's largest manufacturer of fragrances. Wonder if it's going to be considered a natural flavoring, and where did they get that natural non-chicken flavoring from? Beyond Meat has been precisely engineered to look just like chicken, taste just like chicken, and especially to feel like chicken when you take a bite. We are obsessed. We call it OCD, obsessive chicken disorder, because it has to be exactly like chicken. For Brown, 41, an animal lover who was influenced as a child by his father's dairy farm in Western Maryland, Beyond Meat is a cause as well as a business. He is a vegan who supports animal welfare groups like Farm Sanctuary, which rescues chickens, pigs, and cows from farms and zoos. Why do you have to eat protein from animals when you can get it from plants, he asks. His father, Peter G. Brown, a philosopher who taught environmental ethics, encouraged his kids to question everything. Yeah, so did my mom. And so Ethan did. He once took a close interest in a nursery cow that was put to death after breaking a hip. And we'd never do that to our dog, says Brown. To me, it was fascinating, a fascinating philosophical question. You're taught at school not to discriminate against people based on the way they look, and yet all the differences between the animals that we love and the animals that we destroy are superficial. You know, I mean, the guy's got a point. I'm not going to say that I'm all for killing animals because it disturbs me every day. When I think about what happens in factory farms, and even on small farms, I mean, killing anything to me is not something that I would put on my list of anything that I would ever make memorable. That's for certain. And I go to great lengths to not even kill insects if possible. I mean, obviously, if it's a big gooky spider in my house, well, you cross that boundary, you were safe outside. But once you came into my domain, it's game on. But on the other hand, if he's a cute little jumpy spider in the windowsill, I might just get a cup or a paper towel and get them to hop on it and carry them out the door. But on the other hand, I don't want to be forced to eat something that we don't exactly know what's in it. We found out last night listening to the big gathering at Anti-Media Studios yesterday. They got a lot of their journalists in town right now, and they are working on digging through the full TPP that's been released by the White House to understand exactly what it means. And Claire Burnish gave a pretty good update as to everything that I understood. And guess what, guys? We weren't wrong on any of it. Any of the stuff that we talked about here as postulations as being true as far as copyright or food labeling or being able to sue, corporations being able to sue for, lost sales is all true. And it's even worse than we imagined. Food labeling will not exist anymore, and they will be telling us to shut up and eat it, all in the name of climate change. Anyway, I don't know if I want to read any more about this dude's background because this story goes on and on and on. And guess what? It's giving me flash errors, so every time I try to scroll down, it doesn't scroll. So just know Billy Gates is a big investor in this Beyond Meat. They're working on identically, OCD-ish, identically looking, tasting, feeling chicken. How long will it be before they start slipping it in? And something that came up in chat last night that's now making me think something. As we're getting rid of these country of origin labeling laws and rubber stamping how these genetically modified things are identical to normal things chemically or whatever. And hey, so it's great. It's, an apple is an apple, a potato is a potato. How long is it going to be before maybe they start producing this stuff in another country? Get rid of the label, package it up to look and feel just like chicken, ship it in here. And we never know any different. I mean, we had this bird flu outbreak that was like beyond anything we'd ever seen before. Remember, we covered that for weeks on end back in mid-year this year. And they were calling bazillions of chickens and turkeys. And oh my God. I mean, it was a bloodbath. They had the National Guard come out, literally, in Minnesota to euthanize turkeys or chickens because there were so many of them. Whatever happened to that? Remember, the prices were going off the charts for chicken. And we're going to have a shortage. And oh my God, we're importing eggs now, first time from other countries. Holy shit. Whatever happened to that? It just fell off the news cycle. So I don't know. Put on a seatbelt. I had no idea that they had chicken since 2013 that looked, tasted, and acted just like real chicken that was funded by good old Billy Gates as an investor. That's very disturbing. But let's take another backpedal to 2011 now. This is even 2 years before this chicken that was chicken that's not really chicken. Whatever happened to this? Because I've been digging now, trying to find any types of updates. And there's just no news at all. But they did kind of touch on this with the meat or the cheese that was not cow cheese yesterday. They mentioned that one of their next things they're going to do is use DNA from human breast milk and try to make breast milk cheese. Well, guess what? In 2011 in China, they had already made 300 genetically modified cows that produced human milk from their teats. Yes, because it's going to be healthier for you and me. See, that's the whole new spin. Healthy, healthy. It's all about being healthy. So you don't have a choice about what junk food you eat anymore. And hey, high fructose corn syrup has made you all sick. So obviously by your shopping habits, we weren't allowed to trust you people. You acted like 9-year-olds with a cookie jar in front of you. So because of that, and because of the cost now, with all of your Western illnesses, the strain that you're putting on the health insurance system that now nobody can afford because of Obamacare, we need to tell you what you can eat so you can stay healthy. But don't worry, because we're going to make it taste the same and look the same. And hey, you know, you'll be monitored and there won't be any problems. This story, April 2nd, 2011, genetically modified cows produce human milk. Scientists have created genetically modified cattle that produce human milk in a bid to make cow's milk more nutritious. And I had to laugh because here we fast forward now 4 years to that making cheese without the cow. And the mantra is really on, I think, because of quote-unquote climate change, to get rid of the cows, get rid of all the animals, and go to full synthetic meat. Well, we're not going to have cows producing human milk. But maybe we could have bacteria producing human milk and cheese. We're going to just circumvent the cow. But they use the cows to figure it out. Scientists have successfully introduced human genes into 300 dairy cows to produce milk with the same properties as human breast milk. Human milk contains high quantities of key nutrients that can help to boost the immune systems of babies and reduce the risk of infections, and that is true. The scientists behind the research believe milk from the herds of genetically modified cows could provide an alternative to human breast milk and formula milk for babies, which is often criticized as being an inferior substitute. They hope genetically modified dairy products from herds of similar cows could be sold at supermarkets, and the researchers have the backing of a major biotech company. I don't think they mention who it is either. The work is likely to inflame opposition to GM foods. And yes, so don't call it a GM food, right? That's what we found out at their newest gathering for genetic modification companies of food. Don't mention GMOs. That's what they said. Critics of the technology and animal welfare groups reacted angrily to the research, questioning the safety of the milk from genetically modified animals and its effect on cattle's health. So, hey, fast forward 4 years, now they can circumvent all of this. Let's just use bacteria to engineer and pump out things after we insert the right spliced and diced DNA, and we can circumvent all of the GMO labeling laws. We found that out as well. That's what they are doing now. And this is going to get stickier as days go by because this CRISPR-Cas9 technology is allowing them to splice and dice anything with anything. But Professor Yin Li, the scientist who led the research and the director of the State Key Laboratories for Agrobiotechnology at the China Agricultural University, insisted that GM milk would be as safe to drink as milk from ordinary cows. He says, the milk tastes stronger than normal milk, and we aim to commercialize some research in this area in the coming 3 years for the human-like milk. It may be 10 years or more, but it will be required to finally pour this enhanced milk into the consumer's cup. Now, I'm wondering, so they supposedly were going to commercialize this in 3 years or so. So 2011 makes that 2014. And what I want to know is, why can I find no updates on this? There's no more research. There's no other labs producing cows with genetically modified human milk. I mean, it seems to me like there's been a clamp put on any news about genetically modified human milk or whatever else they're doing. Because remember, the gut is one of the primary pathways for getting some of these new technologies across that blood barrier into the circulatory system directly. China is now leading the way in research on genetically modified food. That's got to be a scary prospect. And the rules on technology are more relaxed in China. Oh my God. than in those places such as Europe. Yes. Like China's more relaxed on everything. Like, oh, I don't know, industrial pollution controls. That's why it's the most fucking polluted place on the planet. Don't eat anything from China. The researchers, oh, this is horrifying. The researchers used cloning technology. Ding, ding, ding. And so this is cloned, genetically modified. They used cloning technology to introduce human genes into the DNA of Holstein dairy cows before the genetically modified embryos were then implanted into surrogate cows. So they took clone samples from some good old Holsteins that they considered to be of good genetic stock. And then within those embryos in a petri dish, they spliced and diced the correct DNA sequences where the milk production happens. They took out the cow milk production cells and they put in human milk production cells. Then it started growing a little bit more in the petri dish, and then they artificially inseminated the surrogate cows now with the cloned genetically modified embryo. Oh my God. To produce then 300 cows that then spit human milk out their teats. This is just, I don't know, man. When I really think about like where food is going to be 20 years from now, I don't know. This is just, it's an apocalypse of everything. It's not just an apocalypse of like planet. It is an apocalypse of everything that you've ever grown up with and known. Disruptive change. Exponentially. The research used cloning. All right. So that's what we said. Yes. To implant it into surrogate cows. Writing in the scientific peer-reviewed journal, Public Library of Science, and we've read from them many times, PLOS, the researchers said that they were able to create cows that produced human milk containing a human protein called lysozyme, Lysozyme. Lysozyme is an antimicrobial protein naturally found in large quantities in human breast milk, and it helps protect infants from bacterial infections during their early days of life. They created cows that produce another protein from human milk called lactoferrin, which helps boost the numbers of immune cells in babies, and a third human milk protein called alpha lactobumin, which was also produced by the cows. The scientists also revealed at an exhibition at the China Agricultural University that they have boosted milk fat content by around 20% and have also changed the levels of milk solids, making it closer to the composition of human milk, as well as having the same immune boosting properties. Professor Li and his colleagues, who have been working with the Beijing Gen Protein Biotech Company, said their work has shown that it was possible to quote unquote humanize cows' milk. In all, the scientists said that they have produced a herd of around 300 cows that are able to produce human-like milk. The transgenic animals are physically identical to ordinary cows. Writing in the journal, Professor Lee says, quote, "Our study describes transgenic cattle whose milk offers the similar nutritional benefits as human milk, and the modified bovine milk is a possible substitute for human milk. It fulfilled the conception of humanizing bovine milk." Speaking to the Sunday Telegraph, he added that the human-like milk would provide quote, much higher nutritional content, unquote. And he said that they had managed to produce 3 generations already in 2011 of GM cows. But for commercial production, there would need to be a large number of cows produced. He said, human milk contains just the right proportions of protein, carbohydrates, fats, minerals, and vitamins for infants' optimal growth and development. And as our daily food, the cow's milk provided us with basic sources of nutrition, but the digestion and absorption problems made it not the perfect food for human beings. And they've said that. I mean, cow milk was not meant to go into humans. And breast milk is the best thing to feed a baby. And yes, it does boost the immune system, but I'm not quite so sure. And actually, you got to think too, in China, I think they actually put a CEO to death for the scandal with the baby formulas where they were finding that melamine in the powdered baby formula in China that sickened potentially, I don't know, I think it actually even killed babies. And they went after the guy that ran the factory, and I think he was put to death. They do that in China when they think that there's corruption in corporate China. But so, and they got rid of their one-child policy now, too, because, of course, we've talked about it. China needs wives. You know, one-child policy caused an entire generation of boys to not have spouses now. So now as they're allowing parents to have 2 children to fix their population imbalance, China, with the largest population in the world, needs to worry about their food as well. And hey, if we give our babies good nutrition, good brain fats, they will even be smarter and can conquer the world. I mean, I don't know. I'm just reading like how insane this is. All right. Anyway, as our daily food, the cow's milk provided us the basic source of nutrition. We read that, but it's not perfect for a human being. The researchers also insist having antimicrobial proteins in the cow's milk can also be good for the animals by helping reduce infections of their udders. Yeah, I wonder how that works on your gut bacteria, though. Genetically modified food has become a highly controversial subject, and currently it can only be sold in the UK and Europe if they have passed extensive safety testing. And I think somewhere between 2011 and 2015, many of those countries then banned it. The consumer, but not the United States. Hey, we don't have really any safety testing. Just let it loose, see what happens. It's good for the precision medicine numbers. We'll have lots of sick people. The consumer response to GM food has also been highly negative. Yes, those pesky resistant consumers, resulting in many supermarkets seeking to source products that are GM free. Campaigners claim that GM technologies pose a threat to the environment as genes from modified plants can get into wild plant populations and weeds, but they also believe that there are doubts about the safety of such food. And I mean, since 2011, the genies have been all let out of the bottle, and it's even beyond now just splicing glyphosate genes or whatever, resistant genes, BT corn, into corn or soy or whatever else they're doing. Now we have all this RNAi technology, RNAi in our medicines, RNAi is insecticides, RNAi to treat cancer. It's gone way beyond this 2011 concern. Scientists, of course, insist GMOs are unlikely to pose a threat to food safety. And in the United States, listen to this. In the United States, consumers have been eating genetically modified foods for decades. In plural. Our research has been proven correct. My numbers show at least 25 years or more. Scientists insist, and that's without our knowledge, scientists insist genetically modified foods are likely to provide a threat. But yes, U.S. consumers have been eating genetically modified foods for decades. However, during 2 experiments by Chinese researchers, which resulted in 42 transgenic calves being born, just 26 of the animals survived. Well, that's the cloning that does that. Cloning has a real issue with some of the calves or the offspring surviving. 26 of the animals survived after 10 died shortly after birth, most of them with gastrointestinal diseases. And further than 6 died within 6 months of birth. And we read about that when we dug extensively into cloning and how cloning was rubber stamped in 2008 to already be in our food supply without a label, by the way. And yes, that is true. The reason why they said that even though it was approved that it wouldn't become commercially viable was because many of the offspring died. Researchers, and it was expensive, but the majority of the offspring died. Researchers accept that cloning technology used in genetic modification can affect the development and the survival of cloned animals. There you go. Although the reasons are not well understood. I think it has to do with that, what is it called? They were looking at it when they were looking at longevity, and it's the ends, telomeres. I think the telomeres get shortened when you clone something because it's like taking a copy of a copy. It's just like duplicating a cassette tape or a VHS. And as you duplicate, you lose quality. And those telomeres that are in our cells or our genes, they believe that as we get older, as we damage them with stress, with lack of sleep, with lots of alcohol drinking or fatty, junky, sugary foods, those telomeres get shorter and shorter. And it causes faster and faster aging, and you only have so much of a length of a telomere for life. So anyway, that's my thought on that. I can't even believe that we're getting near the end of the show here, and I want to end it with something. What do we end it with? I don't know, us pesky consumers. Anyway, why do we need this milk? And what is it giving us that we haven't already got? Well, GeneWatch, Director of Biotechnology at GeneWatch, says we have major concerns about this research to genetically modify cows with human genes. And we're seeing that a lot lately. They were just splicing something else with human genes. Oh, geez, yes. And there we go. We're going to have them sprouting legs one of these days and walking away. All right, guys, everyone stick around. Mr. Kevin Glenn, stick around.